Okay, Doctor Sleep. My thoughts. I really like this movie, guys. I watched The Shining last year. Last year, maybe 2 years ago now, or a year and a half ago. Boom. Had this movie on my Netflix list. Watched it. I liked it. Ewan McGregor is great as an adult. Danny plays the adult of Jack Nicholson, the adult version of his son. And as far as positives go, I like that this movie still reinforces that his life is just trauma. His life is just like fear and pain. And the fact that these spirits that follow him, that follow his shine, is that tether that reminds him of trauma and pain that he's experienced. And this movie brought back a lot of the association of his original depiction of the character in The Shining for me, and that was a treat. Just trying to compare that and see in Ewan McGregor's behavior as an adult why he had a drinking problem, not just because Jack Nicholson's character, his dad in the original, had a drinking problem, and I'm sure in the books too, Stephen King books that they're based on, but because this guy, he's really on a literal level, he's trying to keep the demons away, and sometimes he needs help from using his ability, but I feel like long term he's been numbing himself down by using the bottle, right? Taking that sip. And I like that they reinforce with his character early on. No, this is a character that's still drenched in trauma and bitterness from that childhood, from the events of the first film / book. And that would understandably do a lot to anyone. What else do I like about this movie? You know what? I like... Am I getting spoilers? Yeah, it's like okay. I like that there's a point in this movie where they start to show and remind us as an audience, as well as the character of Ewan McGregor playing Dan Torrance, why your power doesn't have to just be a burden. It only occurred to me at a certain point in this movie where he starts to talk through his mind to another character that he hasn't been using his abilities, like basic things to do with his abilities and his shine up until that moment. And they show him basically kind of comforting someone in their last moments. And it's the start of where it's a setup to something else, a montage of scenes, if you will. And it shows how much, no, there is a positivity to that power. It's not just a sixth sense, I see dead people, which is a really sad way to look at that power only. A bit like even if you want to compare it, Klaus in the Netflix show Umbrella Academy, right? You see flashbacks when he's young in season 1. If anyone's seen that show, he has similar, like, he can see dead people. I had to bring out that line from Sixth Sense, and his dad traps him in the crypts and graveyards to have him sleep there overnight, just so he can master his ability. All it does is cause him trauma. And it's not until years later, when he goes through all these kind of trials and tribulations, that you start to see his abilities manifest in a way that start arguably more positive. But even then, with Klaus is maybe again a more comical example of drowning your sorrows and kind of drowning that type of ability away, because they look at it as a burden. Again, understandably so. But this movie takes that one step further and shows what if it wasn't just a burden? What if it was a gift? And another thing I like about this movie, another way they showed that it's not just a burden, it's a gift, and you really can help people. It's not just through, again, Ewan McGregor as Dan helping people, but through another younger character who arguably represents what Dan could have always been if his childhood was different, if he discovered his abilities in a different context, in a different type of household. Because we all know, if you've seen The Shining, the type of dude his dad was and the type of dude his mum was. Very passive, very aggressive, or passive aggressive, just waiting to come out, right? That does a lot to a child. Again, brings it all back full circle. This movie gave me a lot to think about in terms of how we can forget the kind of good deeds that we have the potential to do, or we have done, because of the power of like the bad things, the dark things. And this movie is a reminder that the world's a hungry place. That's a line that's said a lot in this movie. The world is a hungry place, and that darkness and that hunger can make you forget a lot about civility and hope and kindness, and putting our olive branch to aid others. There's a couple of things that I just love a lot about. Oh, here's the last thing. I love. It's a two-sided thing because it goes to a flaw, but I love how this movie expands in some ways on the lore of this shining world. There's something at the start of this movie again with Dan Torrance, where we see a character from the original film, and they expand on something based on the conversation that this character has with Dan in the first film. I'm talking like this movie isn't 3 or 2 years old now. Came out in 2019, but I want people to watch it, so I don't want to speak too explicitly. But I do like, to an extent, how they expanded on the lore in this world, in this film, as far as the spirits go, and all this jazz about, people in the land beyond death, sort of. Now let's get into the flaws. Okay, I have 2 big flaws. Three. One is there's a new character in this movie that I referenced earlier who has a connection with Dan, played by Ewan McGregor, Dan Torrance. I don't like how this character because I see her as a modern equivalent to Dan Torrance in the original movie when he's a child, when him and his dad and mum go to the Overlook Hotel. I don't like how this this new character, is someone who seems not only very confident with her power and she masters things very quickly, but she almost seems like fearless. And that to me removes a lot of obstacles, because there's scenes in this movie where they're trying to make you believe that she is afraid, but I don't get that vibe. It's very little times where I truly get that vibe. It almost gave me a vibe of in the age of Marvel movies and superhero stuff. It gave me the vibe that she was almost like a trained superhero or something, like on some Jean Grey-ish sort of. She was just like she went to the Charles Xavier Institute and now she's just a level something Omega. It was off-putting, because to me, yes, fair enough, I mentioned earlier This is the character I was referring to when I said that she represents the hopeful side of what Dan could have been when he was younger. Because in the original movie, I believe they associated with his shine with having seizures and kind of bad dreams, even before he got to the hotel with his mom and dad. She seems to come from a seemingly happy childhood, has a kind of calm background compared to Dan when he was younger, and has that ability. So maybe this is her being a child and being more wondrous and more carefree. But to me, again, if you're a good character arc shows that a carefree child with this kind of ability, bad things would happen that would frighten you and scare you. And if they didn't do that, then it just ends up becoming like a weird thing, a weird complex. And I don't know if anyone understood what I was getting at, but that's essentially, it just felt like she had things too easy, and it took away from the stakes in this movie, as far as Dan saving her, as far as her being in true danger. I didn't feel it all the way. It felt, again, like I was watching something superhero-ish, and that's not a good feeling that I should have watching this movie. It should feel more like horror, surreal. I reference The Sixth Sense. Like, I don't want it to feel all the way bad in every single aspect. But I don't know. Yeah, just her character was just, for me, the new character. Another thing with that same character, let me look at my notes real quick, because I wrote it down. Oh yeah, I mentioned it, that, yeah, she felt fearless, and again, that troubled me. Here's the second/third criticism, that this world and the villains in this film, there was certain CG effects that you associate with these characters that took the eeriness out of this world for me. I likened from the first movie the feeling that there's something off about what you're watching, because nothing too, apart from like moments here and there, nothing too explicitly otherworldly felt like it existed in this world. That's what made it eerie. Like, these are regular looking people, or sometimes deformed looking people, but an eerie feeling, if you guys understand what I mean, it's just like you know it when you see it. And this movie, it felt more on a superhero vibe sometimes than a horror vibe, a true horror vibe, and that put me off with this movie. I won't lie to you guys. But all in all, that's just that's essentially how this movie made me feel. And I won't lie to you, yeah, there was some off-putting things that I noticed, and I wanted to talk about more in detail. But I did like this movie overall, and if you guys like it, tell me your thoughts down below. Tell me if you had any expectations going into it. If you didn't, whichever. If you haven't seen it, would you watch it now? Again, tell me all your thoughts down below. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and lastly, subscribe for more. Other than that, guys, signing off. Salute.